and welcome to Dadvice. Thank you very much for stopping by. In today's video, we are going to be talking about what it takes to be a great birth partner, and I'm going to be giving you 3 tips to help you be the best birth partner that you can be. Just before we get into the video, I wanted to say really quickly, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate that. And of course, every time you give the video a thumbs up, my heart melts. Thank you. You can also find me over on Instagram at Dadvice Official, and at the moment I am taking queries for any kind of Q&A videos. So any kind of stuff that you feel like the books or the baby groups or whatever you're going to haven't answered those questions, give me a try. I'll give you my viewpoint on it and hopefully shed some light on whatever queries you have not had answered yet. So head over to Instagram at Dadvice Official, or leave a comment below this video and I will have a look through and answer as many as I can. What is the role of the birth partner? For me, it all boils down to one core principle, which your role is to be that safe pair of hands. Ultimately, it's about keeping adrenaline at bay. As soon as there's adrenaline in the mother's body, that is going to slow everything down. So that means labor will take longer and be a little bit more difficult. It's such a key job being a birth partner because you are keeping that at bay. I'm going to go ahead and give you 3 tips now that will help you to do that. So here you go. The tip number 1 is to know the birth preferences that you have. Have a talk with your partner. Find out what is going to make them the most comfortable. Where do they want to give birth? Is it at home or is it in a hospital? What kind of pain relief is available, and which ones are you happy to use? Which ones do you want to avoid? And of course, any preferences for the type of delivery, whether it's vaginal delivery or C-section. Obviously, there's a bunch of different things that can go down on the list that will be preferences. And where birth partners, dads, can come unstuck a little bit is the line of thinking that it's just like, well, she's the one giving birth, so I guess she calls the shots on this. But I would encourage you to make it as much of an interactive decision with your partner as you possibly can. Reason being, a lot of it is going to affect baby, and obviously you are one of the parents, so you definitely have a say in that. And I'll give you an example of a preference that was on our list. We said that we would prefer not to have any students in the room. The reason being was not because we don't trust the students or that we don't think that they know what they're doing or anything like that. My wife was very much on the page of kind of, she wanted to be able to go into her own zone and have her own level of focus, which she really felt would be broken if there were kind of a running commentary of what was going on. So it was on our preferences that we didn't want any students there, to avoid that kind of flow of information, and that we didn't want any information to be given to us unless we specifically asked what was going on. So that's an example that may or may not matter to you, but it gets you thinking about the kinds of things that might be important to you outside of the kind of the more obvious bigger things that I mentioned at the beginning. Now you'll notice that I refer to this as birth preferences. Try to steer clear from calling it a birth plan. The word plan sort of implies that you have a level of control over the situation that you may not. It can start to cause those adrenaline levels to rise if things don't go to plan. Whereas if you have preferences, it gets you in the right mindset from the get-go, that you may have to kind of roll with the situation however it transpires from the start. Following on from that point about referring to the birth preferences rather than the birth plan, this is number 2, and this refers to the use of language. Let me give you an example just to show you kind of what I mean by that. If you think about whenever labor or the birth process is referenced in kind of popular culture, TV, movies, it's often the same way, which is woman grabbing hold to the side of the bed or grabbing hold of dad's hand, white knuckles, cringed up, painful, giving it the beans, yelling, screaming at dad, you did this to me, all of that stuff. We've all seen it, right? What I find interesting is that it's not always depicted that way in different cultures around the world. Other cultures have a much more sort of sedate approach to the way that they kind of talk about it and the way that they engage in the process. So to that, my wife and I very much have the belief of where the mind goes, energy flows. What you focus on is what energy goes into. A lot of that applies to the process of labor. So a very common example is the word contraction. You know, you think contraction and you think tense, and you know, like when you're in the gym and a muscle contracts, it's kind of, it gets painful, the lactic acid. You think about what I said at the start of the video where you know, you want to keep everything relaxed and calm. If you're then talking about contractions and counting contractions and telling the midwife, oh, we're this far apart between contractions, and you're saying the word contract, contract, contract over and over again, that is going to have a psychological effect on and a bearing on the situation that goes against what you're trying to achieve as a birth partner. Instead of that, on our birth preference, we had everybody in the room that was there use the word surge instead, describing the same event, but it doesn't come with those kind of negative connotations as well. Am I suggesting that the use of language, you know, if everybody just used pleasant language with no negative connotations, that everybody would have the most wonderful birth and there'd be a completely painless experience? No, obviously I'm not suggesting that. But I do have a very firm belief that with anything in life, that the language that you use to depict the situation is going to influence it. Will it take it from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other end of the spectrum? Probably not, depending on what it is. That's probably an unrealistic expectation. But can it take an event that's maybe up here on the spectrum and sort of nudge it a few inches further towards the easy end? I absolutely believe that that's true. And it's something that you can use in your role as a birth partner. I definitely recommend that you do that. And the third and final tip is to be ready to speak up. You as a birth partner, you are the mouthpiece for your partner, for mum that is giving birth, all right? I said at the beginning, she needs to know that you're a safe pair of hands, and a huge part of that is using the bits that we've already talked about. So knowing what she wants and having the language to kind of express what she wants. And then when push comes to shove, being able to speak out and make sure that she gets what she wants, all right? This is where you really have to work as a team, because big portions of the labor process, mum is not going to be in a position whereby she's going to be able to have lengthy conversations, and it's just not going to happen. So this is where you step in and where it's so important for you to do that, particularly if things start deviating from what your birth preferences are. That's the point at which it can be quite common for doctors or midwives to come in and go, okay, right, what we're going to do, we're going to use this piece of equipment, or we're going to administer this drug because that's going to help with X, Y, Z. And it can be really easy to just kind of go, oh, okay, you're the expert, let's go along with it. Situations like those in particular, that you really need to know what your birth preferences are and make sure that you are representing to the best of your ability the wishes and desires of mum that is in the process of giving birth. In summary, some tips on being a great birth partner. Have in the front of your mind what your role is, reducing adrenaline, keeping everything calm. Talk about the preferences beforehand, make sure you know what they are so that you can put them into practice once everything starts happening. Make sure that you're looking at your use of language throughout the pregnancy and obviously going into the labor situation as well. Finally, make sure that you are the person that is sticking up for the preferences of mum during the labor process. Do not be afraid to speak out. It's such an important part of your role. I hope that you found these tips helpful, and of course, if you know anybody else who is a parent-to-be, please go ahead and share this with them, and hopefully it will help them out as well. Please do go ahead and share your experiences in the comments below, or get over to Dadvice Official on Instagram. We have loads of conversations about all sorts of stuff over there, so it'd be great if you could join with those as well. I will be back very, very soon with some more Dadvice for you. Until then, take it easy.